Bible speaks of end times, and for centuries, many have claimed the end is near. The disciples believed the end would come in their lifetime. Is there any reason to believe that the apocalypse is right around the corner, despite others who have obviously been wrong in the past? The Bible provides us with many clues to these questions with impressive insight. Did you know that 1 out of every 3 verses in the Bible were written prophetically, speaking of future events before they happened with 100% accuracy to date? Let's examine a checklist of signs that the Bible speaks of, and you be the judge. Daniel 12:4 speaks of an explosion of knowledge in the last days. With the internet and the click of a button, we have the opportunity to learn at a rate unparalleled by any other generation. This verse also states that there will be an increase in transportation. It's remarkable to review the achievements in travel technology, considering 115 years ago, horseback was the fastest mode of transportation. The SR-71 Blackbird holds the current record speed of 2,242 miles per hour, set in 1990. Yet the unmanned Boeing X-43 project funded by NASA has flown at 7,546 miles per hour. In the Old Testament, we clearly see that God made the Jews his chosen people. Ezekiel 37:21 says, "Behold, I will take the sons of Israel from among the nations where they have gone, and I will gather them from every side and bring them into their own land." The rebirth of Israel as an independent nation in 1948 is one of the most significant events in world history. For almost 2,000 years, the Jews were without a homeland, yet did not assimilate into surrounding populations. Every other nation in history has failed to exist after only 300 years. The birth of nuclear weapons is yet another sign of the times. Zechariah 14:12 says, "Now this will be the plague with which the Lord will strike all the peoples who have gone to war against Jerusalem. Their flesh will rot while they stand on their feet, and their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongue will rot in their mouth," which is a perfect description of what happens to the body in a nuclear blast. Universal deception is all around us, and Jesus warns us in Matthew 24 not to be deceived. Revelations chapter 6 speaks of multitudes dying from pestilence, which is exactly what concerns medical professionals today. Governments around the globe are preparing for catastrophic pandemics such as the bird flu and smallpox. The Bible also speaks of famines in the last days, which we have become numb to in today's culture. 35,000 children die each day from hunger and hunger-related illnesses, and totals 13 million deaths annually. The Bible also speaks of earthquakes as another sign. The prophet Ezekiel in chapter 38 states, "In my zeal and in my blazing wrath, I declare that on that day there will surely be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. The fish of the sea, the birds of the heavens, the beasts of the field, all creeping things that creep on the earth, and all men who are on the face of the earth will shake at my presence. The mountains will also be thrown down, the steep pathways will collapse, and every wall will fall to the ground." Is it possible that technology has advanced to the point that governments could create earthquakes, manipulate weather systems, and cause floods, droughts, and hurricanes with a simple press of a button? In the late 1800s, Nikola Tesla claimed he developed tectonic weaponry capable of triggering earthquakes. He claimed the technology could split the world in half with the press of a button. International television is also a sign that we are living in the last days. In the 11th chapter of the book of Revelations, the Bible speaks of 2 witnesses that will be killed, and every people, tribe, language, and nation will gaze on their bodies and refuse them burial. Keep in mind that this text was written in AD 95, yet foreshadows a time such as today, as nearly everyone in modern culture has a TV, and many even get live TV on their cell phones. The Bible also states there will be scoffers in the last days who ridicule those of faith. A one-world government with one leader, known as the Antichrist, will also come about. Do we see any evidence of a one-world government on the horizon?
The Bush administration's open borders policy and its decision to ignore the enforcement of this country's immigration laws is part of a broader agenda. President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it, and he took the step without approval from either the U.S. Congress or the people of the United States. Bill Tucker reports.
The Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America sounds benign, hardly like a policy that critics call NAFTA on steroids. It's a deal that few have even heard of.
It's being done again by very few people at the very top on behalf of the investment class, but the working class of people, political officials across our country, from communities, from cities and so forth, they don't know anything about this.
Yet it was agreed to by Mexico's President Fox, Canada's Prime Minister Martin, and President Bush in 2005.
Apart from that, I think one thing people who are dollar-based need to focus on is the Amero. That's the one thing that nobody's talking about, but I think it's going to have a big impact on everybody's life in Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. The Amero is the proposed new currency for the North American community, which is being developed right now between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico to make a borderless community, much like the EU, and the dollar, Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar, and the Mexican peso replaced by the Amero.
The mark of the beast in chapter 13 of the book of Revelation is described as a one-world currency. And he causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the freemen and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. RFID technology is the wave of the future that will soon replace paper money, as well as bank cards, for increased security.
This guy has a computer chip literally implanted under his skin, and he asked for it. He wanted it. It's called a radio frequency identification device, or RFID. Why did he do it? Well, we thought we'd ask him. Mikey Scarsdale is now owner of a chip in his hand. Mikey, why'd you do this?
Well, I had a lot of reasons for doing the implant, but the most appealing reason for doing it was simple convenience in my life.
Mikey, I'm sure there are a lot of people watching right now who think you're nuts.
Well, that could be the case, but I actually think that RFID is already a big part of our lives. You know, we already see a lot of press about the passport issues and those being RFID tagged. There's quite a bit of consumer goods that have been coming out, such as clothing, license plates. There's just so much in the RFID world to make it pervasive today that I think we'll see more of this activity in various forms.
Ezekiel 38 and 39 tells us of a future invasion of Israel by a vast coalition of nations that surround it. This invasion is led by Russia and Iran, but includes other nations such as Turkey, Syria, Libya, and Sudan. What is interesting is in the 2,500 years that this prophecy has existed, never has there been a military alliance between Russia and Iran. Iran's president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, has sworn to wipe Israel off the map. Several multi-billion-dollar arms deals between Russia and Iran have occurred, and Russia is building nuclear power plants and supplying Iran with long-range missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads.
The Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad getting a powerful new ally in a standoff with the West. Russia's President Vladimir Putin is now backing Iran's right to nuclear power and warning the rest of the world not to use military action against Iran.
I suspect you're not going to believe, at least at the outset, a startling new twist in Iran's ambition to develop nuclear power and weaponry. Unbelievable. The U.S. government has been funding a Russian institute that is working closely with Iran on nuclear projects.
On April 17, 2008, Russian President Vladimir Putin was in Libya, the first Russian leader in history to visit the North African country, creating a strategic alliance, signing numerous agreements, and negotiating a $2.5 billion arms sale to this historic enemy of Israel. As we read the headlines in the newspapers of today and witness the conflict in the Middle East, it's not hard to imagine that this invasion prophesied over 2,500 years ago could be fulfilled in the near future. We are the only generation to see all these signs happening at once. Is God who He says He was? Is He about to intervene into man's history in a supernatural way? Think about it, 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 think about it.